Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Marianne and I teach people how to change a life through changing their thoughts, and today I'm going to be telling you about my Pharmahuasca trip. Before we get into it, if you could please like and subscribe. Right, so for those of you who don't know what Pharmahuasca is, it's basically you ingest DMT, we put it into capsules. We just basically emptied out some creatine capsules, put DMT in instead, and 20 minutes before we got some Syrian Rue, which is one of the ingredients in ayahuasca. Got some Syrian Rue, blended it up. I think it was like 1.5 grams each that we needed. Blended it up, put it in a little shot glass with some oat milk, shot it, and then waited 20 minutes and then had the capsule of DMT. And my friend told me it would just be like DMT, but it would last longer. It wasn't. It really wasn't. It was basically like ayahuasca. So it started coming on slowly, and at first, to be fair, we were all like, oh, it's not worked, and even so there was 4 of us doing it, and one of them even popped out in the car because they were like, oh, it's not worked. And then the rang us, they were like, oh my god, it started working. So they rushed straight back home. And then they were the very last person for it to work on. All of us, it started having an effect, but it hadn't had an effect on him. And he'd never, ever, ever done any psychedelics at all anymore. And we'd obviously read online that the first time that you do them, sometimes it doesn't work. So we just thought, oh, well, it's just not worked on him, it's his first time. So anyway, it started off where I had like the nice feelings and stuff like you do with DMT, and then I started to feel like dizzy, and I stood up and I went to walk, and I was like whoa, falling over and stuff, because it was literally like I was dizzy. It was like you know, like them tire swings or like a roundabout. It was like I'd been on one of them and someone had spun me for like a good 10 minutes, and then just I'd got off. That's how dizzy I was. Like I was super dizzy. And then I didn't feel sick, I didn't feel nauseous, my belly felt absolutely fine, but I just intuitively knew that I was going to be sick. And I don't know why, I just knew. And I said to my friends, I was like, this might sound weird, but I don't feel sick or anything, don't feel sick at all, don't feel nauseous, but I know I'm going to be sick and I don't know why. And then about 5 minutes later, I started feeling sick, so I was like, oh no. And then my friend started to feel sick. Meanwhile, the other guys were having like a good time. And then my friend who was feeling sick, she went off to the toilet, she was sick, and I thought, this is not a good sign, she's actually being sick, then I'm likely going to be sick as well. So she came back from the toilet, she was like, oh my god, I feel better, I'm so glad I was sick, I feel so much better. So I'm like, I know it's totally irrational, but I've got a fear of being sick. So I was just sitting there like, oh, like really panicking, thinking, oh my god, I do not want to be sick. Anyway, went off, I was sick, came back, felt a bit better, and I was like, yay, feel better. But then it came back. The sick feeling came back, and it basically didn't leave me for the whole, pretty much the entire trip. It was just coming in waves. So I was led to believe it was just going to be just like DMT, but lasts for, he said it'd last for about 20 minutes. Thanks, mate. So basically I just it was basically ayahuasca, and everything was coming up, all of my fears, everything, so much stuff came up. So there was 4 of us, 2 of them had like an amazing time. Sorry, let me just readjust my camera, it just keeps moving, it's really frustrating. Yeah, so 2 of them had an amazing time. They were like literally had the eyes shut, they were like literally making noises like they were in ecstasy. Like, I won't repeat some of the noises that were being made, but yeah, so they were just having like the best time. And then 2 of us, myself and the one who's never done it before, we just had we just had an awful time. We were literally like, I want it to end, I want it to end. Like, it was literally awful. And he, the one who had never done it before, he was not expecting this whatsoever. He was literally expecting 20 minutes, it'd be over, he'd have the best time of his life, and he didn't have the best time of his life. He wasn't really, he was kind of becoming more open to spiritualism, but he was still like on the fence. He's now a believer, and it just blew his mind wide open. And he obviously experienced things that he didn't know were possible. He didn't even know what was real. At one point, he thought that he couldn't feel pain, didn't know what was real. He got his phone, he actually hit it off his head just to see if he could feel it. And he hit it off his head that hard, he cracked the front and the back. And then he was like really confused, and it was just really weird. Like, he was having an awful time. It was like he was in physical pain. It was like literally writhing around, so he was in pain. We were all quite concerned about him. He wasn't talking, and we were just like, oh my god, what have we done to him? What have we done to him? And so him and I were having a pretty bad time. Just everything was coming up. And at the time I was hating it. I was absolutely hating it. I even cried at one point. Like, fears came up and I started like crying in front of all my friends. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect this. I thought I was going to have an amazing night. And then it lasted for like literally hours. My two friends who were having a good time, they kept going back and having more caps because they wanted it to last longer. And they were having an amazing time, whereas me and the other guy, we were just like, we wanted it to end. And it ended a lot quicker. It started later for him and ended quicker for him, whereas it's moving again. How bizarre. Is there a ghost? So yeah, it wasn't very nice, to be honest. I literally lived every fear, basically, I've had a fair bit of trauma in my life, and it all came up. But I mentioned it in my last video that I don't have PTSD anymore, and the incident that caused my PTSD didn't come up at all. So that's just absolutely solidified it for me that I don't have PTSD anymore. So yeah, so a lot of stuff come up for healing. I had a lot of realizations, a lot of epiphanies. I went to bed, literally couldn't sleep all night because I was just thinking. I had so much on my mind. I got up the next day and I still had things on my mind. I felt so groggy. The next day I was exhausted, I was napping. I just couldn't get enough sleep into me. And then on the night time, like, I started getting on with work and went to bed. And then the next day after I woke up, I had the afterglow. I had all the amazing feelings, the happiness. Basically, because I was fighting it so much, and the pair of us did not want to deal with what was happening, what we were experiencing, what was coming up for us. And we were like really fighting it. What we didn't realise is the other two, they'd had things come up as well. Or at least one of them did anyway. They'd had things come up and they just dealt with it, went with the flow, and it went well for them, like got better. But because like we were really fighting it and we were like, oh no, like I don't want to go through this. It didn't get better for us. It didn't get better for us. But then once I had the next day to really think about it, really process it, it lasted the longest for me. I had the toughest time. Like nobody else, it went into the next day. Their thoughts weren't still funny the next day, whereas mine were, because I was holding on so tightly and I did not want to deal with this stuff. And then when I actually let myself deal with all the things that had came up for me, I started having realizations, I started having epiphanies, and I started thinking like, wow, and I got a lot of healing. So as much as at the time it was awful, and I was literally like, I'm never doing that, I never want to do this again. I was like, I'll never ever ingest DMT again, never ever. In hindsight, when I look back now, it was actually like amazing. I've healed so many things. I healed so many things in one night. I look back now and I think I'm so thankful for that night, because I feel so different. And it was, although it was extremely different to DMT, where you just have a quick hit, last you 10 minutes, this lasted about 4 or 5 hours of what was just torture, because I felt sick as well. That was one of the things that came up for me. I've got a fear of being sick, so it just, because I was fighting that so much, everyone else, their sickness went away, mine didn't, because I was fighting it so much, and I was like, I don't want to be sick, and I was like having tantrums and stuff, and I just made my trip worse, because I wasn't like dealing with anything that come up. I was just fighting it, and I was just refusing to deal with it, to be fair. And yeah, I wish that I just gave in and I just accepted it and let it come over me, and learned my lesson on the night, because I might have had a better time. So I've definitely learned going forward, if I ever do it again. I mean, if I ever do it again, I think it would probably, I think I might wait until next year, definitely, like, because it was something so tough to process, really, really tough to process. And yeah, but I've got the afterglow now. Like, I do feel really, really, really amazing. Like, just feeling super, super happy, and I feel like so many things have been resolved for me. So many things that were so deep down ingrained into my soul, into my subconscious mind, that I'd even forgot had happened. It's like, and things that I didn't even fully realise, things that I was doing, things like self-sabotaging and stuff like that, that I didn't even realise I was doing. Certainly didn't realise why, because I didn't even realise I was doing it. But then I had all these amazing realisations, and now moving forwards, I've learned so many lessons. And yeah, as much as I hated it at the time, and I'll look back at it as a positive experience. So yeah, that was my accidental ayahuasca experience, which I didn't realise was going to be ayahuasca. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a longer DMT trip. So yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in. Namaste.